Hollywood tape come back to haunt President Trump. Sources tell CNN it was part of the FBI raid on the president's personal lawyer.
The president's national security team meeting in a matter of hours. When and how will the U.S. respond to a suspected chemical attack in Syria?
House Speaker Paul Ryan's sudden decision to leave Congress. How much does it really have to do with President Trump? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Early Start. I'm Christine Romans.
And I'm Alex Marquardt. Good to be back with you. It is Thursday, April 12th, 4 a.m. here in the East, 11 a.m. in Istanbul and Moscow. We're going to have reports from those cities coming up. But first, there are new revelations this morning about what FBI agents were looking for when they raided President Trump's personal lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen. Sources information on efforts to Gloria Borger has been on. She has the latest.
Alex and Christine, sources tell me that the FBI agents who raided Michael Cohen's home, office, and hotel room on Monday were looking for communications between then-candidate Trump and Cohen and perhaps others about efforts to prevent the release of the infamous Access Hollywood tape, and you all remember this, that captured Donald Trump making lewd remarks about women before the election. The warrant's specific reference to Trump is the first known direct mention of the president in a search warrant, and sources say it appeared in connection to the tape. This warrant is also the first indication that investigators suspect there was an effort to suppress the Access Hollywood tape. But we don't know what, if any, role Cohen or the president would have played in that. In addition to what we already know about the warrant, we're also learning that investigators wanted records pertaining to bank fraud and wire fraud investigations. And on top of that, the warrant involved communications about other potential negative information about Trump that the campaign might have wanted to contain ahead of the election. What we don't know is what additional information that might be. Alex, Christine?
All right, Gloria, thank you so much for that. A former White House chief strategist, Steve Bannon, is pitching a plan to President Trump designed to crush the special counsel investigation. According to the Washington Post, Bannon's strategy involves firing Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and having the president end all cooperation with Robert Mueller's team. He's also calling on the president to invoke executive privilege retroactively, already completed with White House officials, null and void.
Meanwhile, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is offering an amendment to the proposed bill that would protect special counsel Robert Mueller. But ranking member Dianne Feinstein is raising concerns, warning that the amendment could actually undercut the Mueller probe. Grassley's amendment would require reports to Congress if there is a change in the investigation or if the special counsel gets fired. Feinstein responded by saying that passing a bipartisan bill to ensure Mueller can't be fired without cause is essential. But she says all political interference must be removed from law enforcement decisions. That means no political pressure from the White House or Congress. Both agreed to delay any action on that bill until next week.
All right, a potentially fierce race to be the next Speaker of the House set off by this man. Paul Ryan's announcement he will retire from Congress at the end of the year. In an interview with CNN's Jake Tapper, Ryan said he is leaving to go home to Wisconsin to spend more time with his family, and that Republicans' tough prospects in the 2018 midterms played no part in his thinking.
I was able to make that personal decision because I feel like we have put our majority in a good place, because we have gotten a lot done. It's making a big difference in people's lives. So I'm confident I'm going to be able to hand this gavel over to another Republican speaker. And because of that list of accomplishments, I actually feel content and confident.
Ryan also denied he is leaving because of a reportedly difficult relationship with President Trump.
We're very different people. I'm from the upper Midwest. I'm not from New York. We're from a different generation. So we definitely have different styles. But what we learned after we got to know each other, because we didn't know each other at all in the campaign. And yeah, we had we had a lot of friction in our relationship. What we learned is we have a common agenda that we agree on, and we want to get it done, and we know it's going to make a big difference in people's lives. And that's what we are elected to do.
Paul Ryan rose to prominence as a sharp pencil deficit hawk. Yesterday, he touted his role in passing the recent tax cuts that will actually balloon the deficit to $1 trillion starting in 2020. Even so, Ryan's departure is a real blow to Republicans who saw him as a stable, policy-driven leader in the midst of this tumultuous presidency. The House GOP now faces a possibly months-long battle for leadership as it grapples with the upcoming midterms in November. Among the leading contenders for the gavel are House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy and Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Both of those men appeared alongside Ryan in this photo that was tweeted out by President Trump ahead of a White House dinner with Republican leaders last night.
Can't see too well. They all have their thumbs up.
In that President Trump style.
In that President Trump style there. All right, CNN has learned the president's national security team will meet at the White House today to hammer out a strategy on Syria. It is not clear whether the president will participate in the meeting. UK officials expected to hold a similar meeting in London. On Wednesday, when President Trump tweeted this, "Get ready, Russia. Missiles will be coming toward Syria," it was just bluster. At the time, the U.S. and its allies had no plan in place for a response. Here's Press Secretary Sarah Sanders defending the president's threat.
Options, and all of those options are still on the table.
The president says, get ready, Russia, they will be coming. The missiles are coming. How is that anything but an announcement of a pending airstrike?
Certainly one option, but that doesn't mean it's the only option or the only thing that the president may or may not do.
CNN's Arwa Damon is tracking the latest developments live from Istanbul. And Arwa, we understand President Trump and Turkish President Erdogan, they have spoken by phone about the Syria crisis.
They did, Christine, although we don't know a lot about exactly what took place during that conversation. Both sides very closed-mouthed about the details, just saying that they have pledged to keep in close contact with one another. Turkey, of course, is in a fairly interesting position, given that on the one hand it is, yes, a NATO member, but on the other hand has maintained certain levels of communication with the Iranians and the Russians. In fact, both the Iranian and Russian leaders were in Turkey prior to this chemical attack taking place. And there's been all sorts of speculation as to what the U.S. and its allies may do when it comes to the various different strike options inside Syria. What is concerning at this stage to those civilians living within, at the very least, the Syrian rebel areas is what then is Syria and quite possibly Russia going to do in potential retaliation to any sort of U.S. or coalition strike. They feel very vulnerable. What they would like to see is not a one-off, but something that's more sustained. In an ideal world, they would love to see some sort of no-fly zone being put into place, because for them, it's not just about these attacks by chemical weapons, although they do get the headlines and the international attention. They are being bombarded every single day, and they are phenomenally vulnerable with no one to protect them.
All right, Arwa for us this morning in Istanbul with that context. Thank you, dear.
Now, later this morning, the confirmation hearing for the nominated Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, will get underway. Pompeo, who is currently the director of the CIA, he faces a tough task winning approval from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. At least one Republican, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, has said he will vote against Pompeo. Which means that he will increase in terms of race, religion, background, and more. That's a quote from his prepared statements. He also is expected to call Russia a danger to our country.
Right, Mark Zuckerberg survived his first grilling on Capitol Hill, but the second day was a bit rougher. Lawmakers hit the Facebook CEO with tough questions on privacy while ramping up calls for regulation. Zuckerberg began the 5-hour hearing smoothly, apologizing again for failing to protect user data, but faltered when asked if Facebook would reduce data collection.
I don't think that's hard for you to say yes to unless I'm missing something.
Congressman, this is a complex issue that I think deserves more than a one-word answer.
Well, again, that's disappointing to me.
The hearings come a month after news broke that Trump campaign consultants accessed the data of 87 million Facebook users without their consent. That angered users, advertisers, and lawmakers already struggling with Facebook's role in spreading misinformation and allowing election meddling. In fact, Zuckerberg revealed that his own data had been exposed, prompting the Facebook CEO to admit the industry needs regulation, but with this warning.
I think a lot of times regulation, by definition, puts in place rules that a company that is larger, that has resources like ours, can easily comply with, but that might be more difficult for a smaller startup to comply with.
Zuckerberg also avoided saying exactly how tech should be regulated. And after 10 hours of questions from almost 100 lawmakers, there's no consensus about what privacy legislation Congress should pursue, which investors seem to like. Facebook stock rose 5.5% over Zuckerberg's 2 days of testimony.
It looks like those congressmen and women saw the coverage of the Senate's grilling of him and took their cue and went a little bit harder after Zuckerberg. All right, well, a familiar refrain from a politician in trouble.
This is a political witch hunt.
More on the sexually explicit allegations in a new report on Missouri Governor Eric Greitens. That's coming up next.